Yo, thanks for joining me for another racetrack track examination. My name is Donnie. You might know me as RotoMoto, and as the series heads to the D up north, I thought it was about time to bring out the big guns. Joining me today is the filthy one, a man born to run the number 69, Phil Nicoletti. Thanks for joining me to talk about Detroit.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me on there. I don't know about the big guns at the moment. Got some muscle atrophy going on, but yeah, I'm excited to do it and give you my insight on the track this weekend in Detroit.
Yeah, so let's jump straight into it. This year has had some wild designs from Dirtworks, but Indy was relatively tame and what some might call, kind of cookie cutter. But Detroit looks busy. Phil, upon first glance at this map, what was the first thing that really stood out to you?
I like the long set of whoops, to be honest with you. And I like the double coming into the whoops because that changes uh, a lot of the character on how you attack the whoops. So I think a lot of time will come from that. So if you don't have your bike set up in the whoops this weekend, I think it's going to be a big factor because Detroit doesn't really break down very much because of the dirt. It's pretty hard packed. I remember last year how the dirt was and the whoops were really gnarly. So I think this weekend, maybe the Dirtworks guys will do a proper set of dozer whoops and maybe they'll last the whole night.
I'm glad you brought that up. So last year, the 450 main was a bloodbath with top guys dropping left and right. In the main event, we saw privateers in the top 10. You raced the
Mhm.
250 class here last year. What can you
Yep.
tell us about Detroit's racing surface and why is it so different from how soft Indy is and then how much everybody loves St. Louis? What makes Detroit's unique?
I don't know. Detroit actually got some new dirt not too long ago, but it's better than what it was. But still, the dirt's kind of gravelly, like it's a little bit marbly. So when it does pack down, it still does have a marble base to it. So not a whole lot of front end traction. But like I said, with the hard base, the transitions get pretty notchy. It doesn't get overly rutted, but it does get notchy in a couple square edge hooks in the transitions in the corners and especially the whoops. So I'm kind of curious to see because it's going to be completely different from Indy. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how some of the guys rebound this weekend on a normal track again.
Let's talk passability. We've got six 180s and four 90-degree corners. We got the long whoops, we have long rhythms, the flat track switchbacks. Lots of passing opportunities in Detroit, or is this going to be more of a one-lined affair?
To be honest with you, I think those switchbacks are going to create a lot of passing because I think a lot of the setup's going to come from the whoops. If someone's a little better and someone's not good in the whoops, I think it's going to allow a lot of setup in those 180s. So I can see a lot of block passing going on in those. And it actually helps break up the track just a little bit because it is quite busy. But if you got someone coming up your end, it's going to be a little bit hard to take a little breather in the switchbacks. But another thing that I'd like to add that I'm not a fan of is doubles across the start straights. That comes up after the switchback. We had one at what was it Anaheim too, and I don't know what it is about those, but they're normally just a normal Supercross triple length. But the fact that there's not another single in between, it makes it feel like it's a death gap. So I'm glad I'm not riding Detroit.
I was actually going to ask that. So this year, Dirtworks seems to have made the point to, they're crisscrossing the start straight a lot. I'm sure to pad those lap
Mhm.
times to keep the track from breaking down so fast. Detroit's no different as we'll cross the start four times, which is tied for the most, and then we're jumping over it. Like, how sketchy is it when you're lining up to hit that even for the first time in the day? Since you've hit them before, is it just like anything else, or are you just like, hoping you don't see God on the other side?
Yeah, it's a funny story. We're doing press day at Anaheim too, and I was looking at the finish line in the double across the start stretch, and I was standing next to Jet Lawrence and Enzo Lopes, and I'm like looking at that, and I'm like, I'm kind of like gritting my teeth, like I'm not too pumped on it. And then Jet goes, "Man, that double across the start straight's got me a little bit freaked out at the moment." Meanwhile, I'm already in my head, and I got the guy that's just won two races in a row tell me he's sketched out about it as well, and I'm just like, well. Dang it, now I'm really kind of freaked out. And I'm trying to tell him to shut up and not psych me out anymore than I already am. So, yeah, I don't know why. There's just something that's the looking at it visually when you're walking at it versus a Supercross triple. Like normally Supercross triple we hit first lap, but a double across the start straight with a gap like that, I don't know, it makes us second guess ourselves for whatever reason. I don't know what that is, but it puts a little bit of uncertainty in my mind and a couple other guys as well. So it's not just me, so it makes me feel okay.
Sure. So to the left of the start straight, right after we do that big double, we have back-to-back rhythm lanes, and they look pretty technical. Do you see any big rhythms that are going to happen on Saturday?
I kind of feel like it's always kind of hard to look at the track map. I'm going to be honest with you. I look at them sometimes just to kind of get an overlay on how it looks, but I don't. I take it with a grain of salt how it's going to transpire. But I could see on the race they could possibly, instead of be going on off after the whole shot, they could potentially quad that, go quad three single into the corner, because they're going to have a lot of speed coming off that double. So I could see a couple of the 450 guys preloading that and getting the hop to quad it.
What about that long rhythm? Do you think it's going to be any quads available in there, or is it going to be more of a 3-3-3-2 maybe?
Yeah, it looks like a 3-3-3-2 to be honest with you. So again, it, it's hard to see from the stadium, but Detroit is actually a very big floor. And last year they had actually some pretty big rhythms. I don't know if people remember where Coop and Sexton kind of had their little mishap. Coop had a brain fart to where he thought he was just on a normal three in, but the three in was so big compared to normal, that it was just an, and to them it becomes so natural just to three into things, but just something was a 3 foot too long. He just spaced on it. So I'd be curious to see if they build something like that this weekend, kind of change the gapping a little bit. But yeah, I think it's just going to be a 3-3-3-2 for the boys.
So what section do you think is going to cause more carnage on Saturday? That set of 13 whoops before a 90, or the Dragon's back out of a 90 jumping straight onto flat?
Ah, the whoops for sure. If the Dragon's back actually had a proper landing on it, it might. But the only Dragon's back that was kind of gnarly this year, I mean, I felt like was San Diego, because you came at it with so much speed and you had to roll out of it as you took off. But that Dragon's back won't be bad because it doesn't look like there's a single after it. Obviously because it's on the start straight. So it's just going to be kind of basic, and I think they'll just go on off inside and then kind of double their way up over and then single off or however it forms during practice.
I know that you mentioned earlier that you don't really look at the track maps, you just kind of wait until you see it. I know you've ridden press day before. How much of an advantage is having that little bit of time on Friday over, being able to get on it for the first time at track walk?
Yeah, it's huge to be honest with you. A lot of teams actually they really do fight for press day because you get on, you get to do two sections, you get to see how the stadium is, and normally, to be honest with you, press day is pretty sketchy, because the transitions aren't really um, groomed in, so they're really notchy. So a lot of guys get on there and kind of can just get the feel and double their way through and triple their way through. And as soon as they triple, they know they have it. And normally race day, the section's easier than it was on press day after they kind of go in and refix it and tame it down. So press day is much harder, but it helps shake the cobwebs out and get ready.
All right, I appreciate you, Phil, for joining me on this edition of Racer X Track Examination. How soon can we expect to see you back on a bike?
Uh I get my pins out on the 19th of not February, April, and then I'm hoping get some range of motion back in a month, and then be back on a dirt bike. I mean, goal is potentially Red Bud, but who knows? Could be earlier, could be later. So that's kind of the goal at the moment. So at the moment, I wish I was going to be joining the boys in Seattle here in 2 weeks or a week. So depression setting in.
For sure. It's a bummer, but we can't wait to see you, buddy. Thanks as always for watching Racer X Track Examination. Be sure to visit racerxonline.com for all of your motocross and supercross news.